We'd like to welcome all of you to Conference USA Roundtable. I'm Ron Thulin. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had 3 head coaches and an athletic director talking about what all of us are going through from their perspective. Now we're going to take a different look. We're going to have the announcers from a number of teams talk about how their schools are doing, their communities are doing, maybe even some football rules right here on Conference USA Network. And joining us, we have an esteemed panel. First of all, from Old Dominion University, good friend of mine, Ted Alexander. Ted, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Ron. Great to see everybody.
Good to see you. And John Cox from Southern Miss. John, good to have you here with us, buddy.
It's great to be here. It's great to see some familiar faces instead of just the family dog and a couple of the neighbors every once in a while.
And a man I've known for a long time, Andy Everett from UTSA. Andy, good to have you with us.
I think all of us are suffering from cabin fever. Whenever sports resumes and life resumes will not be soon enough.
And last but certainly not least, Chip Welders. Chip, good to have you with us today and joining us.
Appreciate it very much. Still looking for the esteemed members of the panel to show up.
Everybody was busy. Everybody was busy. But we were the first to jump in and say, okay, we'll RSVP this. Gentlemen, I want to start with something pretty simple. The community. So everybody's community is dealing with things differently. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and even there's a big gap between Dallas and Fort Worth and how they're dealing with. I want to start with you, Ted. How's the community at ODU dealing with all of this?
I think like everybody, be it Norfolk and Virginia Beach or anywhere else, we're using the machete to blaze a new trail. We aren't quite sure what the end looks like, but we're trying to get there is in a safe and efficient way. You've got a lot of media coverage of ocean fronts at this time when some beaches in some states are open and others are closed. We're just trying to maintain the safe distancing type of thing. We're trying to do our part. And as a university, obviously everything's online right now. I've got a grad school student at Old Dominion living under this roof. And so she's learning a new normal as well. And I think everybody's trying to be smart and be forward thinking and be safe.
Chip and John, this is going to be for you because not only have we been dealing with this in those sports, but there's been weather concerns in the Nashville area, Chip, for you, and in Hattiesburg. John, why don't you start off because you've got all this going on, and then you have the flooding and a lot of other things, as Pat Riley called them, peripheral opponents. How's Hattiesburg been dealing with all this?
I've been really proud of the folks around Hattiesburg and South Mississippi. They've had so many things over the years. Years ago, Hurricane Katrina came through, and, we've had some hurricanes that have been in and around Hattiesburg the last few weeks, and then the coronavirus. But I think, I haven't been out much, but when I go out, I'm amazed at how positive everybody is that, we're going to be okay and, things are going to be okay, and how everybody's kind of pitched in as best they can to help their neighbors and the folks in their community. So I think it's been good, and the university's been great. Our leadership in the city of Hattiesburg, led by Toby Barker, the mayor, and our president, Dr. Rodney Bennett at Southern Miss, have been so positive and so helping in all the things that are going on. So lucky to be in a place like Hattiesburg where everybody sort of feels like the next person's their neighbor and is willing to help out and do whatever they can to make things better.
Chip, you're not too far away from professional sports, but you also have those terrible tornadoes hit Nashville. What's it been like there?
Well, that was about 4 to 5 weeks ago when the tornado came right through downtown Nashville and basically followed I-40 up to Cookeville, and between 25 and 30 people lost their lives in that event, and about 1,100 homes were destroyed along the path of that tornado. So about the time, there was a huge outpouring of volunteerism throughout the mid-state area to help people out. But then all of a sudden on basically March 11th or right in that area when things shut down, a lot of the relief efforts kind of slowed down. And ironically, we are exactly 10 years to the weekend, this past weekend, from the major flood that happened in Nashville that kind of knocked it to its knees. But Nashville bounced back obviously and had one of the greatest 10-year periods it's ever had. This whole area with what we have with collegiate sports, high school sports is huge here. That's been a big blow in our area as well, with high school sports coming to a halt with right in the middle of the high school basketball championships and spring sports. So a lot of questions up in the air, but we've been fortunate to have really good leadership. Our governor, Bill Lee, our mayor here in Murfreesboro, Shane McFarland, who is a middle grad, they've all been very positive in their leadership of the direction we're going to go. And as of last Friday, we're starting to open back up. Restaurants are at 50%, retail at 50%, hair salons, thank goodness, are going to open up on Wednesday. And so some of that's starting to happen here. And this past weekend, we had unbelievably great weather here this past weekend. And everybody who had cabin fever was out and about. And you just hope that doesn't come back to bite us.
Andy, having lived in San Antonio right by you, I know how tight-knit that community is. How has it affected the community as a whole?
Well, I think there's a little bit of division in the community because the governor has basically said, let's open at 25% and has really kind of taken the shackles off for businesses to open. And yet the local leadership has said, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it a little bit slower than the governor wants to. And so there's kind of been that group of people that are either ready to go all out, or those that are still very reserved and want to stay sheltered. And so I think we're seeing a little bit of that. Plus, it was 96 degrees here this weekend. So people are ready to go to the lake. They're ready to go down to Corpus and the beach areas, which I understand were packed this weekend. So community-wise, I think you've got two sides. One that says we need to wait longer and the other that says let's go. And I kind of think those two are fighting one another. From a UTSA perspective, they've kind of developed some really good plans, I think. They've been in communication with all of their players. All the administrative people are working with them online to help them with their classes and make sure that they stay up to speed in the classroom. And all the strength and conditioning coaches have given them workout plans based on what rudimentary equipment they may have at home in order to stay in top shape to when their sport does resume. I do feel very badly, and this is conference-wide and NCAA-wide, all the spring sports teams, the football and softball and golf and tennis and track. San Antonio and UTSA was supposed to host the conference outdoor track championship this month. None of that's going to happen. And I do hope that those athletes that do want to do their senior year over do get that chance.
Well, Andy, I want to stick with you real quickly here, but you've got a new football coach at UTSA and Jeff Traylor coming from Arkansas. Here's just all this excitement, in December and in January, and he's all built up. And then, boom, it all comes to a stop. How has it been for him?
Well, the number one thing is he didn't get a spring practice. And he's seen his players on film, and that's the only thing he has to go with him. But there's going to be a different offense. There's going to be an entirely different defense that UTSA is going to run next year. And he doesn't know yet where to put all those pieces of the puzzle. That 18 days of spring practice was going to be to determine that. They also went out and signed a junior college quarterback that is going to fight for a starting job, because even though you've got three guys returning, he doesn't know if any of those three can run his offense. So all of that was as an important of a spring for UTSA football as maybe any in the past.
Ted, you're in the same boat.
Yeah, Ricky Ronnie coming from Penn State, his first head coaching gig. He's put together his staff, and you can imagine the whirlwind that it is for any new head football coach at the FBS level. And so he puts together the staff, and they're all ready to roll. And then suddenly spring practice goes up in smoke. They didn't start early like some Conference USA teams did, so they didn't get any workouts in. And so you're trying to move everybody, families, et cetera, into the Hampton Roads area, but you're having to meet your players. It's almost like buying the 1,000-piece puzzle and looking at the picture of it, and it looks great on the box, but you haven't gotten a chance to open it up and look at the pieces yet. Hopefully, when that does finally happen, they've gotten enough work in on the film side to understand who gives them the best chance to make a mark. But I really feel for brand new head coaches coming into this thing. If they didn't have enough to worry about, we add this to it.
Chip, and everybody knows how important spring practice is. What's it been like where you are?
It's one of those, it's a situation we're all in. And I think, people who know Rick Stockstill, normally he can tell you right now what he is going to be doing at 2:30 p.m. on August 22nd. He is just one of those guys who has things planned out. And now to have to go back and do this, it's been interesting to see and get feedback on how the players who are for all of us are spread across, different regions of the country, how they're going about it. I think our strength coaches, there was a story on our website on goblueraiders.com where Matt Hickman, who was the football strength coach, he basically put together 3 types of workouts. One was if you had access to regular weight equipment somehow. 2, if you happened to have a weight bench in your garage. And 3, if you had nothing and just had to use body weight type things. So how they've gone about that, also to watch the coaches adapt a little bit, because they're having to do things very, very differently. They're used to having their hands on these players at this time of the year. And, I think as we move toward what we all hope is a start of the season on Labor Day weekend, that I think the teams that have experienced players in key positions are going to have an advantage, and also teams that have some continuity at their coordinator positions are going to have a little bit of advantage, I think, at least early.
John, how about you? Do you think you will have a little bit of advantage? And also I want to mention something. Usually this time of the year, we're all in Biloxi, Mississippi, doing baseball. And it's a great time of fellowship for all of us. But how about your football team? The fact that the spring practices and everything pretty much shot.
Yeah, it's been strange. This is the first spring in 43 years that I haven't been at the baseball park this time of year. But yeah, I think our folks have done an amazing job. I think our director of athletics, Jeremy McLean, has done a really good job of having a plan on how to approach some of the things, and that kind of trickles down to Jay Hobson, the football coach, and then our strength conditioning guys, and the academic side. That's the other side. I think our academic people have done an amazing job of keeping in touch with our student athletes and making sure that they've been able to, whether it be tutoring or whatever, via the internet, getting all the tools that they need to be successful virtually in the classroom. And the same with the strength conditioning guys. I think they've been able to get a plan out to our male and female athletes about what they need to do and how they need to do it. And so I think we've had a good plan. I think, again, Jeremy McLean and all the associate athletic directors that have been involved in that have done a good job of, making it as easy as it can be for all of us in athletics. So I think that's made everybody feel a little bit better about, what's going on and what the future holds.
I saw an interesting survey here on ESPN, and I want to give the numbers in just a minute, but I want to get all of your impact. And I'll start with you. And Andy brought this up earlier when all of us were just chatting. What do you think sports will look like come fall?
I think people are going to run with open arms toward anything that's active and live and participatory, be it themselves or their favorite high schools or colleges or pro teams. I think there's a thirst for it, and you don't know what you've got till it's gone, whatever the song lyric goes right there. And I think people will want to consume it. Whether they'll want to consume it in person, we'll have to wait and see, because there's the train of thought that says, let's cool our jets a little bit and let's not be the first ones in the building and continue to do the safe distancing thing. There are others that say, listen, I've been waiting. I've been doing my part. Now sports are back. Let's jump on in with both feet.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a mixed bag. I think there's going to be people that say, yeah, the restaurant's open and the bar's open and the hair salon's open and the football stadium's open, but that doesn't mean I have to go. And
right.
Then there's going to be people that say, I'm all in and I'm going to go. I think UTSA is in a unique situation in that we play in a 60,000 seat arena that at best is going to be half full. And so we can social distance in the building and still put 30,000 people in the building. Other schools may not be able to do that. And as we talk about the bigger conferences, if Texas A&M or Alabama or schools like that can only operate at 50% capacity, that's going to be a lot of people that normally go to a football game that can't. So I think those things are interesting. I hope at some point we get fans back in the stadium in this next round of seasons, because I think that's what is part of sports. I watched a couple of weeks ago the replay of Tiger winning the Masters last year, and every shot was greeted with a thunderous roar. And him hitting those shots without the roar, it wouldn't have been the same. And so while I think we will accept sports in whatever vein we can get it, I think having the fans there at some point is really critical.
Now, the most shocking thing that Andy just talked about is that he didn't mention Oklahoma, talking about the big stadiums. Okay,
Well,
that in my 30 years I've known him.
Actually, that's why I picked that one.
That's a first, Andy.
You can throw Oklahoma in there too.
I'm disappointed in you, John. What do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I think it's going to be really a neat experience. I mean, all of us talking here, we love what we do. I mean, we live to do what we do. And I think when the fans finally have missed a little bit of it, I think when they finally get back to it, they're going to realize, what big a part of their lives that it is. I mean, we all love what we do. And I think the fans are going to love it. I think they're going to come back, as Ted said, I think they're going to come back with a renewed energy, maybe an even different way of saying, hey, this is what we love to do. This is an important part of our lives. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think people are going to, as we bring them back a little by little, I think they're going to realize how important a part it is. I think they'll be more involved than ever before. So I'm looking forward to it. I think I hope it's Labor Day weekend. I hope it's ready to go soon. But whenever it is, I think we'll see an explosion of the love of the game of football and all the other sports like we've never seen before.
Chip, I would agree with all of that. I think that even in your case, that the community will go, we really need this as a diversion.
Well, and I think somebody mentioned it. Sometimes you don't appreciate what you have till it's taken away. And we were doing a show the other night, and Kyle Turnham, who all you guys know, who's my analyst in basketball, we were talking about at the end of this show we had Coach McDevitt on, and we're talking about unintended consequences. And one being Zoom is an unintended consequence of all of this. But Kyle mentioned, he said perspective. And he said, I think come, August or September, October, whenever these sports start back, that I think even from the student athlete's perspective, things may be a little different. While we all want to get it back for our own reasons, he said, I think those student athletes are going to say, instead of saying, hey, I've got to go to practice today, it's going to be, hey, I get to go to practice today. And to be able to re-embrace, like John said, the love of the game that they play.
Here are those numbers. And I found this interesting, but not surprising. 65%, this is an ESPN survey, 65% of those who were surveyed said they favor returning even with no fans. 76% said they favor sports coming back if players were kept in hotels and isolated from everybody else. 88%, and this kind of goes with what everybody's been saying, 88% of the people said they'd watch more sports. And I know you look at the numbers for The Last Dance, for instance, on ESPN about Michael Jordan. Those ratings are through the roof. What documentary would have done that? And Ted, I'll start with you. Do these numbers surprise you?
Oh, not at all. I mean, we're scratching and clawing for anything new and creative to consume. And I think The Last Dance, that's why they moved it up a couple of months, just because there's so many people chomping at the bit for this type of thing. I mean, that's why, whatever you're watching on television to pass the hours is getting all those numbers as well. People have that time to do it. And many have gone to, sit in their backyard or read books and do those types of things. We've also discovered those types of things about ourselves that hopefully will remain, because oftentimes they're things that make us all better. But I think when sports comes back, it's desperately important to a lot of people, whether they consume via from their couches or go out and do the tailgate thing and the camaraderie thing and then go into the stadium. The interesting thing you see about a lot of these numbers, and I've been fascinated by this, is in the Power Fives with their television contracts, the live gate I don't think is quite as important as it is for Conference USA and the G5
right.
folks, just because it's the TV money isn't there, but B, it's more about creating the atmosphere, creating the event, creating something for your fan base to do for whatever sport, and that leads to concession sales and hopefully donations and those types of things. And I think it's important. I do the games if no one's in the building, and maybe listenership would go up or whatever. But I think everybody wants to get back to it because it's much more than a game. It's an event. It's a community thing, and it's a chance to do something we haven't done in a few months now.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I think one of the things that I've always talked about when I've done talk shows, the question comes out, why do the Power 5 schools always play Conference USA and Sun Belt schools and all of that and pay them a lot of money to come and play? And not only can they afford to give teams in our league and others 700 to $1.5 million, depending on what school it is, to come and play, more often than not, they're going to win. But it's a home gate. And not only is it a home gate, but it's a community home gate. I would bet the numbers of hotel rooms and restaurants and things like that that do business, all over the Power 5 schools, Norman, Austin, College Station, Tuscaloosa, wherever, those 6 or 7 Saturdays that they have a game, the amount of money that entire community makes
Right.
probably is as much as it is the other 45 weeks out of the year. And so that's why you always see those kind of games being played, so they can get more home games. And it also benefits schools like Conference USA that need that revenue for not only their football program, but their other sports as well.
Yeah, John, I want to pick up on these stats because I will do games if there's nobody in the building. And I remember doing the Puerto Rican shootout years ago in basketball. I think we counted 35 people there in the stands, and you had to do it. But there's something about football, and you guys probably feel the same way. I always like the windows open in the press box when I'm doing a game. I want to hear the fans. I want to feel the cold, the rain, whatever. It would be kind of weird not hearing fans. Would it be strange for you, John?
For me? Well,
Yeah.
Of course. But you know what? I think we probably all understand. We all probably grew up knowing that this is what we wanted to do one day in some way, shape, or form. When I was 5, throwing a ball up against the wall in my backyard, listening and pretending I was Harry Carey, Jack Buck, Marty Brenneman, all those guys. I said, that's what I want to do one day. And back then, you had a love of the game. You had the love of broadcasting, and it didn't matter who was watching or who was listening. Now, when you get to, the years we've all had into it, yeah, you want to hear that roar of the crowd and hear the band playing and hear the cheerleaders in the background and things like that. But I think the beauty of what we do is, we're all storytellers. You grow up wanting to be a storyteller, and, this will be a great challenge, I think, when we all get back to doing what we're doing, whether there's fans in the stands or not, to really kind of go back to what we did when we were little, wanting to do the broadcast. And so I think give us a chance to be storytellers again, and even make ourselves better, because we want to paint that picture even better for those folks who may not feel comfortable coming or may not be able to come. So I think it'll all make us better and make the enjoyment of what we do be a lot better than it ever has been.
I was a Bob Prince guy growing up in Pittsburgh, sitting in my living room and watching the game and doing play-by-play into a little reel-to-reel tape recorder, and my parents would walk by and go, there's something wrong with this kid. That's what I wanted to do, and I was, 11 years old or something. Chip, how about you? It would be different, but I don't think any of us, and all of us combined, I don't even want to count the years we've been doing this, but I don't think anybody would say, I don't like that. I think we all just want to get back to doing it.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the numbers off of the ESPN study, whatever it takes to get it going as quickly as possible, I think we're all for. I mean, you look at what NASCAR is doing. They're going to run 7 races in 11 days coming up here in a couple of weeks. iRacing was a huge hit, when they unveiled that. So there is a thirst and a hunger for what we do. But from from our standpoint, it goes back to what we all learned about. And John and I are fortunate. We grew up in the same general area of the country and had a lot of the same influences from broadcasters and just, you thought, man, that guy, he gets to go to all the games and gets to tell people about it. And to be able to do that, I mean, we all feed our own egos a little bit by being able to do that and do it with a flair for the dramatic when it's called for. And I know we all look forward to doing that because it does cement that relationship that we have with our own fan bases. And And that's why, as great a broadcaster as Ted is, somebody may be listening to both of us doing the same game. If it's one of our fans, Ted's trash, and if it's an Old Dominion fan, I'm trash. Same kind of deal.
Yeah, Ron, you mentioned Puerto Rico. I did a game years and years ago. I did St. Mary's University in San Antonio at the time was an NAIA school. And we had a game somewhere, I think it was a small school in Birmingham, actually. And there was nobody in the stands. It was one of those classic games where we played at 5 and then the home team played at 7:30. I was the crowd noise. And the referee even gave me the shush sign during a free throw one time. So I've been there.
It's not guess the attendance, it's name everybody. I remember when I first joined Turner going to a Braves game, and this is when they were terrible. And I was up in the booth, and Chip Carey was there, and Pete Van Wieren, and Chip's doing the play-by-play, and there's nobody at Old Fulton County Stadium. And the umpire turned around and looked at Chip and goes, "Chip, are you serious?" Or Skip, "Are you serious?" Because they could hear him. So I kind of understand that. Gentlemen, before we wrap this up, everybody asks me, what do I miss the most? And I think it's the camaraderie. I miss seeing you guys. I miss seeing the players. I miss seeing the officials even. But Ted, I'll start with you. What do you miss the most? And not necessarily the game, but outside of the game.
I miss game day. I miss the game atmosphere. I miss walking into the arena, the baseball park, the football stadium or the basketball arena. I miss saying hello to those that, you're there a couple hours beforehand. So you see all the workers, all the workers who are grinding through and doing their thing as the excitement builds. I miss seeing the donors that you see every time. And I spoke at a donor event about a week ago. And the thing is, it's not that you sit there and have a 10-minute conversation with them each time, but you see them and you associate them with lots of events that you've been to. And it's a wave or a nod or a handshake or a fun mini story or something like that. It's those types of things that I miss. And then, of course, you've got the game itself, the build up. And, we're all performers. We all do our thing. And when the performance, when the light goes on, you sit there and like you did when you were a little kid, you imagine someone who can't be there and you're their eyes and ears and you want to tell them that story and you hope it's a happy story. But if it's not such a happy story, that's the story nonetheless. And you live and die with that stuff. That's what I miss the most. Just game day before, during, after.
Yeah, I'll echo those same comments. I'll add to this, and I think we can all experience it, especially being around the teams that we cover for so long. And especially basketball, because you're with them for 5 months. You eat with them, you travel with them, you're on the bus with them. Athletes always talk about when they retire, it's not the two-a-days, it's not the getting hit by a player, it's not running up and down the court 100 times or extra batting practice. It's the camaraderie of the teammates and that travel party that goes with them everywhere they go every single week. And Steve Henson and before him, Brooks Thompson, and the two coaches for football for UTSA have always made me part of the Roadrunner family. And that's something that I always missed. And not only during the season, but when I go back for events, usually April, May, and June, we're doing a lot of donor things. And the players are involved. And it's a chance for us to catch back up with them or for the seniors to say so long to them. There was one UTSA basketball player a few years ago that got married, and he invited me to the wedding because I was there. I was around him for 4 years. So it's those relationships that you build that hopefully we don't have to wait too much longer to reconvene.
John, what do you miss the most?
Everything. I love to get there early. I was sitting there thinking as you guys were talking, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, I like to be there early. I like to be there, when the dew is still on the grass at the baseball park. I like to be there when the janitors are still cleaning out the Coliseum for a basketball game and all the stuff that goes on. I just love everything about it. I hate it for it to end. That's the part that hurts the most is when it's over. You don't want to ever want it to end. So I miss everything. Yeah, I miss the people. I miss the coaches. I miss the guys in the concession stand who listen and want to talk to you. I miss the players. I miss everything. Right now, I feel like, the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. That's what I feel like. I'm on that desert island holding Wilson the volleyball right now.
And it's right behind your head, John.
Yeah, I know. But I just miss everything. Like I said, it's what I'm sure these guys have the same story. It's what I've always wanted to do since I was 5 years old. And I would do it every day if there was a ball game every day. And to have it taken away from you here these last 7 weeks is terrible. I understand it's for a good reason. You know, we got to get this thing beat and we got to get everybody healthy and all that. But man, I miss it. I go outside and watch the kids out in the neighborhood play ball right now just to get a taste of it. So I miss it all, miss the chance to tell those stories and interact with the fans and interact with the players and the coaches.
Chip, how about you?
Well, you know, a couple of things. Number one, what everybody talks about, that feeling that we all have from taking the preparation we have for a broadcast and then delivering it, that juice that you feel from that, you know, that's a big thing. You know, when you, at the end of the night, you know, we all are connected with our fan bases, and that's a big deal. And, you know, to feel like, man, you know, I think, you know, at least we got part of it right tonight and made folks, told them a good story. The other thing is what Andy was talking about, in that I remember Kermit Davis, when he was our basketball coach here, he said, Chip, you know, one of the reasons you coach is for happy locker rooms. And in our case, it's that happy bus ride, that happy sitting in the airport, waiting for the plane to take off, and, you know, and being around those guys when you get back to the hotel and you got a meal after the game, and those moments that other people don't get to enjoy like we get to enjoy, those things that make what we do. There's only about 130 jobs of these in the country, and we're so very fortunate to have them and to get to experience all of that. But yeah, I'm hoping that Labor Day weekend, I'm in Durham, North Carolina at Wallace Wade Stadium, getting ready for toe to meet leather, and as Middle and Duke play.
Andy, you brought some, I don't want to end yet because Andy mentioned something that kind of spurred something. You talk about, you know, April, May, and things that are still going on if in a normal season, but just because this has happened, everybody's putting out additional product and trying to stay in contact with the players, the fans, the boosters, etc. What have you heard about UTSA? How are they reaching out to those that aren't going to be attending games right now?
From a ticket standpoint, tickets are still available, and we're still trying to sell them as if there's going to be a game. Our first home game won't be until September 18th, I believe, where we start the first 2 games on the road, open at LSU. And so,
lucky you.
Yeah, lucky us. But there's still, the plan for now is we're going to play football in September. And if that changes, then we'll adjust. I think one of the things that I've started doing with the video department at UTSA is to have conversations each week with a different coach. We've had Jeff Traylor on, our new head football coach. Rashad Wisdom, our safety, he has a brother who's fighting cancer, and there's a bunch of stories online about Bryce Wisdom, his brother, and the fight that family is going through. But he and several other Division I athletes, all from the San Antonio area, have this big food drive going on in their respective communities. And so we talked to him about that last week. We're going to visit with Steve Henson this week and all the other coaches over the next few weeks, just to kind of give fans a kind of a perspective of where their sport is right now and what we know of now, what the plan is going forward.
Ted, I know you're actively involved in everything going on at ODU. Give us an example of what you've been doing during this time.
Well, with props to Aretha Franklin, we've started a series called Who's Zooming Who? And that's, like Andy was talking about, just interviews with coaches and administrators and those types of things. How are they dealing with this? Because everybody has their own story. Everybody is going through this for the very first time. And, you know, we follow the lead of our president, John R. Broderick, and director of athletics, Wood Seelig, and they're keeping steady hands on the tiller and trying to be transparent, but still forward looking. And together with their conference colleagues, trying to make sure we find a solid way out of this where the footing is good and the health is good as well. But, you know, doing those types of interviews, doing donor events, the folks on our athletic communication staff are trying to up the content because there is a taste for it now. Our website had, they did some analytics and last week there were twice as many hits on the website than there were a year ago at that time. So there is an audience out there. We are trying to be mindful of people that spend a lot of time with their devices and not ping them too much, but ping them with just the right type of content. And that can be a slippery slope at times, but I think people want to know that we're still there. We're still rooting for everybody. We're still pulling for a sooner rather than later type of conclusion to this. But also at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat because we have no idea how it's all going to end.
Tell us what's going on at Southern Miss, John.
Well, a lot of the same things. I think our communication staff, our marketing folks at Southern Miss are doing an amazing job of getting a lot of content out there because, Ted's right. I mean, people are hungry for it. They want to hear about Southern Miss. So they want to see what's going on, what's been going on, and things like that. So I think our marketing, our senior staff, Jeremy McLean, the AD, and all his folks did an amazing job. Personally, I've not really done a lot of this before, but we're doing a weekly podcast inside Southern Miss Athletics where I visit with the athletic director, I visit with one of our head coaches, and then right now, because it's still kind of baseball season, I'll visit with one of our former baseball players, the one that's coming up this week, Brian Dozier, who's just won the World Series last year with the Nationals and is now with the San Diego Padres. And then we started a few weeks ago doing a classic radio broadcast. Right now, it's baseball games. We go back and play a baseball radio broadcast in its entirety without the commercials, so the fans can go back and relive some of the great moments. We'll continue that on later on with basketball games and football games and some other stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, everybody's right. I mean, there's such a hunger out there right now for what's going on and the history of your university, the history of the athletic programs and stories that people can tell. So we're doing our best to kind of, feed that appetite of the Golden Eagle fans. So even though they're sitting at home or sitting on the back porch, they still can kind of have a feeling that they're there at Pete Taylor Park or Reed Green Coliseum or at the Rock when the Golden Eagles are playing.
Now, Chip, you have an outstanding sports information staff, and I'm sure they're keeping everybody up to date on what's going on. Give us kind of an inside look at what is happening.
Well, it starts with very frequent updates from our president, Dr. Sidney McPhee. He's been very visible throughout all this. Same with Chris Massaro, the director of athletics. But, the staff in the athletic communications office, they have really been sharpening their feature writing skills here over the last 7-8 weeks because, and I think, again, we talk about unintended consequences or unintended benefits. There's been a ton of stuff that everybody's departments have put out, getting to know your student athletes even better, a little deeper dive into their personalities, their families, that kind of thing. Same for all the coaching staff. So there's that. There's been a ton of content on that. We've done the classic games, our NCAA. We had a window where we could get NCAA tournament games in. That was a lot of fun, even going all the way back to 1982 when we beat Kentucky, up through Michigan, beating Michigan State and Minnesota, that kind of thing, bowl games, all of that. We're doing a weekly show, very much like what John talked about, with different coaches. To even, that even includes stock within football, the basketball coaches, all of that. We just kind of rotate through the sports. And the other thing is we have this year-end ESPY style award show that we normally do. It was supposed to be last Thursday night, and it's in a theater with, big time production and all of that. So obviously that couldn't happen, but we did it on Facebook Live. All the presenters had sent in their all of their stuff with phone videos. It was very interactive. The winners put up their acceptance speeches on social media and all that. That went over really, really big last week. So there's a lot of that just continues to move on. Everybody changed gears very quickly. And I think now that our president has announced that the plan is to have on-campus classes here starting in August, that there's a new target, a new focal point that gives everybody a boost right now as we head through these summer months, looking toward the beginning of a new school year and a new athletic year.
Well, I know all of us probably feel the exact same way, but one of the things I miss the most, just seeing you guys. We shared a lot of laughs over the years and food, Southern Miss, which is still the all-time great. But gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking time, and I hope your wives don't mind me taking you away from them for an hour or so.
Not at all.
I'm sure they wanted me to drag it out. Could you go a little bit longer, please?
That's right.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, I wish you and your families the very best. Please stay safe. We look forward to seeing everybody, and hopefully when the football season kicks off. But thanks for being with us today.
you got it, Ron.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ron. Good to see y'all.